I'm Dr. Kowsar. I'm a faculty member of Children's Medical Center, Tehran University of Medical Sciences, and it's my honor to be here today trying to talk to you a little bit about how to write a proposal for your thesis. Okay. Since you have problems with your connection, it's a little hard to ask for active participation, but I really want you to participate as much as you can. Even if you have problems with your microphones, please write in the chat forum. You are free to answer ask any question you want, and you are asked to answer the questions that I ask during this session. Thank you very much. Okay. So I think all of you that are present here today know what you want to do. You want to write a thesis. So you need to have a proposal for it. And for having a proposal, you definitely need to have a title for your proposal, first of all. Most of you guys already have a topic. Maybe a professor has proposed a topic to you, but you should know, for those of you who don't have a topic, you can choose any topic you want, and the professors will help you to go through with it. And maybe they will ask you to modify it a bit, but if you choose a topic, they will certainly help you to do what you want to do and to choose the topic that you really like. But for choosing a topic, there are some points that you need to consider, and the topic needs to meet some criteria so that the committee in the university accepts it as the topic of your thesis. First of all, the topic should be appropriate. It means that you should pay attention to the scope of the issue, to the severity of the issue, and the involved population. Okay. Talking about a very rare disease, for example, that from which there is only one or two in the whole world, it's not very interesting, you know. It's not very interesting to the audience and to the university as well. Okay. Talking about a problem that the country is now facing, or the world is now facing, or a disease that whose cure and whose treatment can make a difference, well, that's very interesting. Suamo says, I can't access the voice. You can't hear me, or you can't talk. Which problem do you have? Okay, so first of all, it should be appropriate. Then it should be executable. If you choose a topic that needs a lot of money to be performed, for example, if you choose a very expensive laboratory evaluation, then the university might not accept it. Okay, might not accept to pay for it. I myself chose a topic a couple of months ago, and I was worried that the university would reject it because it needed a not very routine, but a normal test. And normal, I mean, not a very weird test. The test that it can be done, but it's really expensive. There you have two options. If the test that you want to run is very expensive, you might be asked to pay for it yourself, or your professors might be asked to do that. So make sure that the test that you're going to run is not that expensive, and please make sure that the payment will not be on the patients, because sometimes it's like that. For example, you will check something like iron level for all the patients. You might think, well, that's not so bad to check for iron, and the laboratory of the hospital will not be surprised if you check iron for some patients, but those patients really do not need their iron level to be checked, and the expense of that laboratory evaluation will be on the patient. So you cannot do that to the patient. It's not ethical. Okay. And so think about the personnel, think about think about who is going to gather the data. Sometimes some students choose a topic and they write a proposal on it, and then when they want to execute in fact the topic, the work, the study, they say that, well, I don't have enough time to come to that hospital, and so there is no one to help them. So think about the personnel that is going to help you, and the time schedule is very important. For your thesis that is not going to be a complicated one, please choose topics that and studies that are going to be held in a short time. Don't think much about the cohort studies unless there will be someone who is going to follow your work. But for your thesis, I don't think cohort studies about which we're going to talk are suitable. Cohort studies are studies that need following the patients. Okay, so try to stick to cross-sectional studies and maybe case control studies. Even clinical trials are not very suitable for you guys because you need to follow the patients, you need to see the results, and clinical trials are really hard to perform. And there might be many problems with the clinical trial, and the university may object a lot, and you might need to change your topic or thesis, so it's not worth it, I think. Avoiding repetition is very important. It happens a lot that the students ask me if it's really worth it to do the study that they're asked to. They say, well, there are works done in this area in the world. I have found some studies in this same field in PubMed, for example. For choosing a novel topic, there are some concerns that you should pay attention to. You can choose a topic that either there is no same work like that topic in the world, or there is no same work, saying this is work, in the country. Okay, maybe this topic, this study has been done in other parts of the world, but not in Iran, not in the country that you're working in. It is important that we have this study executed here in our region, in our country, maybe even not only in our country, but also in our center, in our hospital. For example, there are lots of studies conducted about malnutrition of children around the world, okay? There are even lots of studies conducted about malnutrition of children in Iran or in Tehran even. But it is important for us to know about malnutrition of children that are referred to Children's Medical Center. Why? For example, if most of the patients that are referred to Children's Medical Center are suffering from malnutrition, maybe what we can do in our clinics is to offer some, for example, multivitamins, some nutrients, to check routinely for some tests like vitamin D, like iron level, like zinc level, you know. So this study is still valuable for us to check for malnourishment in children in Children's Medical Center, even when this study has been done several times around the globe and in the country and even in the same city. Okay, so when you choose a repeated topic and an unnovel topic, the thing we should consider is that maybe there's a controversy with previous works. Maybe, for example, I'm doing a study evaluating the patients with, let's say, with appendicitis. Okay, with appendicitis. And well, this same study has been conducted even in Children's Medical Center, but I present some results controversial to the previous results that are published about the children here in Children's Medical Center with appendicitis. So this is just really valuable to present some results different with the previous results or controversial to the previous results. Maybe I'm just presenting a difference in place or even in time, okay? For example, I conduct a study about the most common reasons of the most common etiologies of pharyngitis in children referred to Children's Medical Center. Okay, this study has been conducted in 1990 in Children's Medical Center. Now it's 2021. Okay, and there are many differences in the pathologies, in the viral etiologies of pharyngitis, maybe in the epidemiology of those pathologies. So it's worth it, and it's valuable to conduct that study now after so many years. Okay. You should also pay attention to the political acceptability of the topic that you present, to that topics being applicable. If you present a topic that is applicable, it is much more interesting, and it's much more likely to be accepted. Okay, to the urgency of the urgency, it means how urgent the results are being needed. For example, now if you conduct a study about the results of vaccination of COVID-19 in children in Iran, the results are urgently needed. The country really needs the results of that study. So they are very much going to accept and just admire that topic, and they will give you any money that you want, for that urgent matter. And ethical concerns, as I told you about, are very important. You should make sure that you can access the patient's father, the patient's parents, for getting the consent. You should make sure not to do any additional evaluation or laboratory evaluation that is not needed for the treatment of the child. You cannot expose the child to any hazard because of your own study, and you should explain everything that you're going to do about the child to the parents and all the ethical concerns. So that's how you should select your topic. Okay, and you should pay attention to these things when you want to choose a topic. So when you have chosen the topic, the subject of your work, you should write down your title. When you want to write a title, you should present the issue you want to talk about. You should specify the population, you should specify the time and the place. Okay, for example, okay, can you give me examples? You can write or you can talk about it. Present some titles, any title. It does not need to be novel or your own thesis topic, something that just comes to your mind. Try to be meeting the criteria that I told you about in the topic selection part, and also in the research title requirements. Try to think about the topics and write them. We're doing this because if there is something that you have not understood well, it will be reflected in the title that you write, and I can correct you and prevent future problems. So you know that these classes are supposed to be in shape of workshops. We are a little far from each other to do that. Sorry, I have a problem here. Okay. It would be really great if you were present here, or we were together, so that I could check your titles on the computers, for example. But since you're not, you should try to be active so that I can solve your problems. Okay. Edmond says epidemiological features of children under 16 years presenting with pharyngitis to Children's Hospital from 2016 to 2017. Epidemiological features of children under 16 years presenting with pharyngitis. I think the topic is interesting, and yeah, I think it's applicable. You will have enough time to do that. You will maybe you will read the data recorded in the clinics. We have the data recorded there. When you write these topics, try to be more specific about the name of the place. You should name, for example, Children's Medical Center, Tehran, Iran, from 2016 to 2017, okay? Because later on, this will be the topic of your proposal and maybe your thesis. And it should be clear exactly where you have conducted the research. Okay, I like the topic, thank you. Ranga says, assessing the prevalence of breast cancer among the 18-year-olds in Tehran South District in 2021. Assessing the prevalence of breast cancer. That's interesting too. Yeah, the place and time is clear. Sometimes they say that you can specify the type of your study, about which we're going to talk about later, in the title. You're not always asked to do that. For example, you can here for the 18-year-olds, you can say a cross-sectional study assessing the prevalence of blah blah. Okay. But you're not always asked to do that. But you can use the way you're going to do that. Especially if you're going to do something novel, okay? For example, if somebody is going to do a meta-analysis, it's very interesting, and it's usually required to say it in the title, because it's very different. If you're doing a meta-analysis, then everyone will say, wow, that's a really great study. He has done a meta-analysis, okay? Or for example, you have done a cohort. A cohort is more valuable than a cross-sectional study. So if you specify that in the title, it will drag attention and it will be more valuable. But it's okay not to use it here. Okay, Ranga, thank you. Anybody else? That's great. Okay. I will be willing to hear from others in my next questions. If not, we will have problems. We say in Persian, it says, you know that much Persian, huh? We will have problems. We will have a fight. Okay. So we're going to continue with the step 3. Okay. I hope that you have the platform of the proposal that you're supposed to write. In the first page of your proposal, there is the name, the title of your proposal. Then there is your name, your professor's name, your institution's name, and then the type of research is asked. There are 3 options in your MBBS proposals that you can choose. Okay, there is basic, applied, or clinical, and HSR. We want to see what any of them means. Okay. Basic research is a research that tries to formulate theories or to improve a body of knowledge, and it focuses on principles. Okay, for example, studying about the genetics of a specific disease, it can be a kind of basic research, okay? Studying about the core temperature of the sun, that's a kind of a basic research, okay? There is no clinical applicability for that basic research right now. You're not going to use the data in the clinic, okay? You're talking about something theoretical, okay? So that's a basic research. And applied or critical research tries to solve practical problems, okay? And it focuses on solutions. Both the topics that you provided here are types of clinical research, okay? You're going to talk about the epidemiological features of children with pharyngitis, okay? So you want to use that in the clinic because you want to focus, for example, if epidemiological, if we have more cases of pharyngitis in children who live in the rural parts rather than those who are living in the center of Tehran. We're going to focus more on the patients who are living in the rural parts when they are in doubt of pharyngitis, for example, okay? Also, the prevalence of breast cancer among the 18-year-olds. If the prevalence is very high, so we are going to maybe to do some screening later in the 18-year-olds to propose some routine tests for screening in the adolescents, okay? So you want to provide some solutions. You want to do those topics. You want to use them in the clinic, okay? We also have a type of research that is called HSR. Rarely you use those topics. It's the abbreviation for health services research, okay? In these types of researches, we want to organize, to manage, to provide finance, you know, for something that we need, okay? We want to solve the problems of the health society by doing those projects. For example, I might propose a proposal, I might write a proposal explaining why we need a new ward called the internal medicine ward, internal pediatrics ward in Children's Medical Center, okay? I will write a proposal explaining why we need بخش داخلی اطفال in Children's Medical Center. I will explain, I will write it like the other proposals that you're going to write, okay? And I will try to convince the government, I will try to convince the health system, to convince the Children's Medical Center municipality, I mean the head of the hospital, to give me enough money to open up a new ward. I will say that I'm saying that it's valuable, I'm saying that it's worth it, I'm saying that Children's Medical Center needs that. Okay, so I should I should convince them. There are other examples for that. For example, I'm going to hold a festival for medical education for students, okay? And this is something that eventually will help ameliorate the medical education in our university, okay? So this is not something that you want to do in clinic. This is not something theoretical. This is something, you know, executive. And I need money for this. So I will explain why it is important to do and what I'm going to do about it so that maybe I can gather some money and I can gain the permission of the authorities to do and to perform that festival. Are we clear about the HSR research? Rarely do you write those things because usually the faculty members and these are the people who write these HSR proposals. Are we clear about HSR? Because it is it's new, but it's one of the options that you should check in your proposals. And well, I don't think you will ever check that for your own proposals for MBBS. Okay. It most says that trying to set up a registry, for example, traumas registry, heart surgery registry, fall under HSR. Yes, yes, I suppose it is. It's HSR. Yeah, that's a really good thing to do, by the way. Yeah. Okay. So the next part on your proposal page is a type of study. Okay. We're going to talk a little about different types of studies. I got this from an article with too many citations. This is a very well-known article. I will later share the reference, and it talks about different types of studies. Okay. So here we have the medical research. The medical research has two main types: primary research and secondary research. As you can see, the primary research is something that you do, is also called original work, original research, something that you perform and you yourself do, and you present the results. Okay. Secondary research is using the results of others to announce something new. You know, for example, in the reviews that you do, you gather the information that others have in fact, the studies that they have performed and the results that they have announced, and you gather those information and you present it. So you haven't done anything original, you just have gathered the results of the others' studies. Okay, but in primary research, that's what you have done. The primary research is divided into three types: basic research, clinical research, and epidemiological research. Okay. So basic research, also called experimental research, this experimental is different with experimental clinical research. So that's why we do not we do not call basic research experimental anymore. Try to say basic research. Basic research is in fact like the same one that I talked about before in types of research. It's basic research. It's talking about theories. It's talking about the science. Okay. It has two types: theoretical and applied. And the theoretical type, maybe you try to develop a method. Maybe you try to analyze measurement procedure, biometric procedure, imaging procedure, test development assessment. Okay. You just will try to explain things in theory. You will not do them by yourself. Okay. Also, in the applied basic research, you're not going to conduct the research yourself. You're just on the humans, okay? You're just going to study in the laboratory. So you're not going to do that on humans in clinic. I might have misspelled this. You're not going to conduct the research on humans. You're going to do that in the laboratory. It's not in theory. It's really applied, but in the laboratory, not on humans. It has animal study, cell study, genetic engineering, biochemistry, material development, and genetic studies. Okay, so what you are going to do most of the times is categorized as clinical research or epidemiological research. Okay, so in clinical research is the same as is also called clinical trial. Okay, so this is clinical trial. We're going to talk about this one later in the slides. And this one, these other ones are other types of studies, like cohort studies, like case control studies. We're going to talk about them too. Okay, so let's go. Okay, Mohammed is drawing on my board. I don't know why. Okay. So first of all, we're going to talk about clinical trials. Clinical trials are types of studies very much favored today because all of the drugs that we are using for COVID in the world are accepted by clinical trials. Maybe some of them are those that have gone through only phase 1 and phase 2 and not phase 3 of clinical trials, because we were in such a rush in these 2 last years to use the drugs. So they are really important and valuable studies, but they are very hard to conduct because you should have a plan for them, you should have a principle for them, and you should register for them. And there is a website for just registering for the clinical trials. You should write everything down very in very much detail, and they will not let you to do a clinical trial easily. As you might know about the clinical trial, it's a kind of a study in which you're trying to prove that a certain drug or a certain procedure or a certain treatment is safe and effective. So you're going to do that, to try that on some models, maybe humans, in this case, humans. So you might induce some problems, you might induce some hazard on those humans. So it's very important that you have a plan for it and that the system lets you do that. Okay, so it's hard to meet the criteria. Because of that, I don't suggest that you choose these topics for your thesis unless a professor says that I have a clinical trial that is registered and it has an ethical code and everything is okay. You just come and just publish the results. For example, write the article, the final article, write the thesis. And this happens rarely, so please try not to just enter this field for your thesis at least. I suggest someone does this because it's very valuable as an article, you know, as an experience, but not as a thesis, because it has many problems and many ethical problems, and the university might find many problems with your work. Okay, so try not to choose this. And okay, so that's what you do. And it has 3 phases. In the phase 1, you usually just try to prove that the drug is safe. In this phase 2, you try to prove that not only is the drug safe, but also it is effective. And in phase 3, that's the phase that the FDA approves the drug, and it usually takes 2 or 3 years for FDA to prove that the drug is safe and effective to use. Okay. The clinical trials are categorized into 2 types: interventional clinical trials and observational clinical trials. In interventional clinical trials, did I miss something important? I don't think so, but someone's voice is open. Wait until I mute that voice. Yeah, he muted it himself. Okay. It's okay. It's okay. No, and we recorded this session. You can later listen to it. It's okay. Okay. These are the basic parts. Don't worry, because I'm just introducing the topic and introducing the first parts of the proposal, and we're going to work on this later. Maybe if you have problems in some special times, because we had this problem. In some specific times in the day, the internet connection was very low. The speed was very low in the dormitory. So you can tell me if that's the problem. We can change the time of the class so that all of you can be present for the next sessions. For example, when we talk about EndNote or SPSS, you really need to be present then. It's better that you just participate in the class and ask your questions and problems with the software. So we have 2 types of clinical trials. Interventional clinical trials are those in which you do an intervention. You randomize the patients and the cases in one category, and you randomly put them in one category and the other ones in other category. And you will give the normal drug the drug that has routinely been used, or placebo. Placebo means a fake drug, okay, to one group, and the drug that you're going to test to the other group. Okay, for example, we want to try to prove that a new drug for COVID-19 is beneficial and is okay. You will give vitamin D pearls to one group that you think is safe and it doesn't have any problems, but it's placebo, and the new pearls that contain the new drug to the other group. Okay, and it should be blinded. It means that you should not know which group is the control group and which group is the case group. If both you and the patients are blinded, then the study is double blinded. If only the volunteers or the patients are blinded and they do not know whether they are being given the placebo or the new drug, then the study is blinded. The study should at least be blinded. Okay, it's better if that's double blinded. In the observational clinical trial, you're not going to do any interference, any intervention, okay? And you just observe, and the grouping is not done according to randomization, okay? It's done according to characteristics of the patients. Based on the characteristics, you decide that these patients should be given this drug and those patients should be given those drugs, okay? Okay, so this was the clinical trial that I repeat that I do not suggest it strongly for MBBS proposals and thesis. The cohort studies are the prospective observational studies. It means that you start from the exposure, okay? For example, I want to know if the patients who are receiving additional zinc, supplemental zinc, are going to have a higher weight and height after 5 years. Okay, we are administering zinc supplements to all these patients, and it's not a clinical trial. We are giving them, for example, because the mothers insist that the patients need to be given the supplements. Many mothers do. Okay, so I follow the patients, the patients that by their own will we're going to take these supplements. Okay, I follow them for 5 years, and after 5 years I measure the height and weight, and I compare it with normal population. For example, I see that, well, these patients are on the 75th chart, okay, the 3rd percentile chart. So they are really high in their height and weight. So I conclude that, yeah, supplemental zinc makes children taller and maybe not fat, but better with better weight. You know, it will improve their weight gain. So this is the cohort study. So as you might see, this one is also a little hard for you MBBS students to perform because you need to follow the patients. So it will just take some time to do. Okay. Here we have an example. You can later, I will give you the slides later. You can click on this and then read this study to see what I meant by a cohort study. These examples are also taken from a website, so I will give you the reference of the website. It says, for example, a smokeless tobacco cessation in South Asian communities, a multi-center prospective cohort studies. They have followed the patients who have stopped smoking in South Asian communities, and they want to present the results. Okay. So this was cohort study. And what is a case control study? Guys, you're seeing my screen, right? I'm just going and I didn't ask anything. You're seeing the PDF that I have shared, right? Okay, yeah. Thank you, Abis. Okay. And about the case control study. In a case control study, you start from the outcome. You do not start from the exposure. That's the mistake that many students just have. You should not start with the exposure. You have some outcomes, okay, and then based on the outcome, you divide the patients to two groups or more than two groups, okay? Then in these two groups, you search for the exposures, okay? For example, let's say there are patients referred to the clinic, to the endocrinology clinic of Children's Medical Center. Some of them are fat, some of them are normal, okay? I categorize them in two groups, the group with high BMI and the group with normal BMI, okay? So after that, I will search for the risk factors in each group. And I understand that, for example, in the group that has high BMI, the diet is really full of carbohydrates, full of fat, and the exercise time is very low. But in the other group, the group that the patients have normal weight, normal BMI, the diet is moderate in carbohydrate and fat. This is a case control study, okay? I think this is a good study design for you guys. And here, an example is also donated: non-use of bicycle helmets and risk of fatal head injury, a proportional mortality case control study. Okay. From the name, I can understand that probably they have categorized the patients into two groups. The group that had a head injury and the group that did not have a head injury, and then they search for the exposure. They search if they have used the helmet or not in both groups. I know. Okay. Dr. Ziai says that we are a little short in time in this session. We only have time until 5 o'clock, and I think we can finish before 5 o'clock. There is not much left, and after this 1 hour, we will continue the class for next Wednesday. Okay. Then we propose here cross-sectional study. In cross-sectional study, you are studying the patients in a point of time. You are seeing both the results and the exposure in the same time, okay? For example, I am studying a group of patients with, as I said, appendicitis. I'm studying a group of patients with appendicitis. I will gather the clinical manifestation and the laboratory evaluations, okay? I'm not grouping them. I'm not starting from the exposure. I'm not starting from the outcome to see what the exposure was. I'm gathering the data, all the data in one sheet. The patients with appendicitis, I want to know what the clinical evaluation is, okay? Okay, and then you have case reports and case series. Case reports are reports of the cases which are a little, special. They are not prevalent, if you have a rare disease, if you find a patient with a rare disease in your hospital, you can report it, okay? If there are not many reports in the literature about that patient. If you propose multiple cases in one article, then that's a case series. How many sessions are we going to have? Let's talk about it later, because I think the Zoom will just close, and we will talk about it later. I will tell Ranga to talk to you. We have two types of reviews, and these are the last types of studies I'm going to talk about. As I told you, reviews are the types of studies that are called secondary studies. It means that you're not going to do any original study. You're not going to work with patients, okay? Systematic review is a review in which you include all the articles published in that area. For example, I'm going to talk about pharyngitis in children. I'm going to include all the studies conducted up until now about pharyngitis. It has a special way to be performed, a special protocol to be performed, and it needs a couple of sessions to be explained. But you should know that that's what systematic reviews are. And they are a little, they need a little expertise to work with the search engines, and they are very valuable studies. In fact, reviews are the most valuable studies, okay? We have another type of review, and it's called meta-analysis. It's a step further from systematic review. After you have conducted a systematic review, you can conduct a meta-analysis. A meta-analysis is an analysis of different studies so that you can present one result. For example, I have studies, I can do an original study to say that, for example, let's say tocilizumab has an effect on COVID-19, okay? I can do an original study here, for example, the case control study or clinical trial. But if, and I can say, well, according to my study, tocilizumab does not have any effect in treating COVID-19. But if I analyze all the studies in the area, in this area, all the studies have studied tocilizumab effect on COVID-19, and then by putting together all the results, I announce that, well, I can now say that tocilizumab does not have any effect on COVID-19. This is a very powerful study because it does not include only my study. It includes, for example, 10 studies. So this is the most powerful study in the among all the other studies. Okay, so we have these two reviews too. So I think we have covered 2 pages of your proposal up until the type of research and type of studies. Okay, in the next session, we will go for the background section, which is a very important part. I think we can finish the proposal in the next session. And now, if we have enough time, I think I can answer your questions for today. And about the sessions, I think you will at least need, for proposal writing, 2 sessions. And for thesis writing, if you want to know about thesis writing, maybe 1 session, but 1 session also for EndNote and 1 session about SPSS, if you're interested. Okay, great. I'm happy to hear that. If you have questions, you can have my number. You can also ask Ranga to tell me your feedbacks and your questions too. Thank you. Yeah, I really appreciate Ranga for his efforts, and thank you, Dr. Ziai, for your time, for opening the Zoom for us today. Thank you guys for participating, even though you had problems with your Wi-Fi. You're welcome. Goodbye, guys. You're welcome.